based. We're delighted that we could bring this, what we feel to be a very timely webinar to you today. So really what today is all about is providing you with information that we have recently generated through some work that we were fortunately able to do at the Retina International World Congress. So the genesis of this, the start of this, was that we, through our study on geographic atrophy and age-related macular degeneration, the burden of disease and the cost of illness of these diseases that we published in 2022, we've learned a lot about the realities of living with forms of age-related macular degeneration, including geographic atrophy. And then with subsequent work that we have done, we have learned that the understanding of geographic atrophy and the awareness levels of geographic atrophy among the patient community, healthcare professionals and decision makers is not high. In fact, in some respects, it's quite low. And we're wondering why that is. And we're starting to learn a little bit more about why that might be. We believe that there is some challenge in the way people are diagnosed with geographic atrophy. Terminologies that are used are often different. For example, some people are diagnosed as having late-stage dry AMD, and if a patient hears that in the clinic and they don't hear geographic atrophy, and they don't know a lot about geographic atrophy, they don't recognize themselves in that cohort, and that has challenges that we will discuss in this webinar. But really importantly for us as a global umbrella group, whose role it is to support research that leads to innovation, that leads to potential therapeutics and access to those therapies for patients globally, there is a challenge in understanding of geographic atrophy at decision-making level, what the need is, what that high unmet need we believe is, demonstrating that need and understanding what's value to this patient community. And that's something that we want to get to the heart of, and that's what we're starting to do. We believe that greater awareness is needed across the community, and we also believe that further studies are needed in order to really better understand attitudes, burden, and what life really is like with people living with this condition. So we as a community can advocate better, smarter, with much more robust data. So as I said, we had our patient advisory board as part of our work and as part of our events around the Retina International World Congress, and that's really what we're presenting to you today. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll have questions at the end. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Nabeen Powdell, to present the work that we did, the outcomes, and we can take it from there. So thank you for your attention, and I'll pass over to yourself, Nabeen.
Thank you very much, Avril. So I will provide a quite nice introduction to the current gaps in the field of geographic atrophy, and what we understand was what the lack in relation to the knowledge gaps in the literature on different stakeholders, including patients, industry partners, as well as clinicians and scientists. So a quick introduction to geographic atrophy. I think most of you would know what geographic atrophy is. It's a sort of advanced form of dry AMD. And in terms of numbers, it impacts over 5 million people globally. And this condition leads to progressive and irreversible vision loss. As you can see, for those who can see on the screen, you see the normal retina is kind of pink-orange fundus where there's no lesions or anything like that. But in the image below on your right, you can see in the center part of the retina, there's atrophic lesions, which look like a geographic pattern. So that's where the name comes from. It's look like a geographic map. So that's why it's called geography. And that central region is responsible for sharp vision, which is required for reading, watching television, and sharp central vision. So if that area is damaged, which is due to the loss or degeneration of photoreceptors, one sort of specialized cells in the retina that helps in providing nutrition to other cells, and it leads to severe loss. So geographic atrophy has significant economic and societal impact. I think most of you have heard about the cost of illness study that Retina International conducted in 2021, 2022, where we determined that the economic burden of geographic atrophy was ranged from 220 million to approximately 25 billion in across different countries. So and looking at the current landscape of geographic atrophy burden, awareness, and current treatment modalities, so there is limited awareness of burden, as Avril mentioned earlier. There's understanding the condition, understanding its impact is very limited. That's why there's insufficient research funding, which leads to limited treatment options due to lack of innovation, and limited understanding also leads to lack of support beyond physical impact. So there's limited understanding in relation to what are the ripple effects of the disease, what are the mental health implications, what is the effect of the disease on productivity, work life, caregivers, and things like that. So that has led to lack of support in patients with GA on other support rather except the vision improvement and things like that. So, and there are very limited treatments as well. So if you see the treatments available for geographic atrophy, which are only available in the US, approved by the FDA, they mostly focus on atrophy, the lesion prevention, and delay in atrophy progression. So which ultimately leads to vision preservation, extended visual function for some people who want to preserve visual function, and also quality of life improvement. Now, there is sort of a mismatch or sort of lack of consensus among the stakeholders like patients, regulators, and clinicians in relation to what is meaningful to patients in relation to GA, and whether it could be lack of tools available or lack of understanding. So in terms of patients value the quality of life and vision preservation. So if they can extend their current vision, depending on the level of vision, of course, if they can extend the level of vision that they have currently, they value that, as well as extending their quality of life. That's what patients value. Clinicians generally value or kind of take into consideration of the measurable structural and functional outcomes, which has to be detected by clinical measures. And regulatory and policymakers actually kind of focus on structural as well as measurable patient benefit. So they want to look at what is the benefit of the treatment in terms of measurable available tools. If there are no tools that are not if there are tools that are not available that can detect the improvement of visual function, then they don't consider that as a meaningful improvement. So we need to generate new tools that can actually catch or detect the functional improvements from current therapies. So that's the current knowledge in relation to the burden of the disease, as well as the treatment and the gaps in the understanding of the disease. Now, as I mentioned before, we had an opportunity at the Retina International World Congress to bring together patient leaders across the world and to discuss on what are the things that you think are important to patients in terms of the impact of the disease, as well as the expectations from the current and potential therapies for geographic atrophy. So basically, the aim was to understand the perspective from patient leaders regarding their perception on what are the impacts of geographic atrophy, and what are the treatment expectations from the current and potential therapies for geographic atrophy. And if you come to specific objectives, we aim to identify patient leaders' perspective on the overall impact of GA, not just on their visual functioning, but also their impact on their family members, impact on their work, impact on their mental health, and so on. Also, we wanted to gather patient leaders' perspective on treatment expectations, perhaps more realistic treatment expectations from current and future potential therapies for GA. And after gathering those items, we wanted to prioritize them in the top 10. What are the top 10 kind of impact of GA from the patient leaders' perspectives, as well as prioritize the treatment expectations from these leaders. So we used a widely accepted method called nominal group technique, in which we had several sessions which were facilitated by our research team within Retina International. So we had our members assembled from 5 countries who are members of Retina International, from Switzerland, Australia, South Africa, Spain, and Brazil. We had one patient with geographic atrophy who was based in Ireland, but in relation to completing all of the processes of the nominal group technique, the patient lost to follow up. So we were only able to get the feedback or the ranking from the 5 patient leaders. So what happens in this nominal group technique is that there is a session of silent. So the facilitators ask a couple of questions. So in this case, we posed 2 questions. One was based on impact, and the other was based on treatment expectations. So for each of the questions, the process is repeated. So for instance, the facilitator asked the question in relation to what are the impacts and challenges associated with GA on daily living activities, mental health issues, emotional and social issues, caregiver burden, employment, independence, and visual function. So these are the questions, that was the question asked. And then there is a 10 minutes of silent generation of the ideas. So all of the participants who participated in this program had a time to generate although there's some deviation from the method, because it depends on the level of expertise of the participants and the assistive technology and the facilitation required. But overall, the process was there is a 10 minutes of silent generation of the ideas. Then the next step is everybody within the participants call out the ideas one at a time. So until the ideas are until there are no further ideas. And then the next session would be to clarify if there are any if there are any concepts that are similar, aligned with each of the participants, grouping of the ideas, any clarification regarding the terminology and things like that. And then there is a voting or ranking of the ideas. So basically, the voting or ranking of the ideas in this study was conducted online because of the time constraint. So the whole session lasted for 3.5 hours. And then we did the voting via emails. And then there's a discussion, which is sort of, for the do you accept this ranking, or do you want to do it again, and things like that. So that's the method. And then we also use the slight modification where we generated the ideas from literature and patient surveys as well. So that is ideally you would do silent generation, round robin, clarification, and voting, but you can modify it based on get the ideas from the literature and surveys as well, and then do the voting. So that's what we did. We used the literature and surveys as well as the sort of ideas from the group, and then put them together in an Excel sheet and asked the participants to vote them based on the importance. So 10 would be the highest importance, and 1 would be the least important out of the number of items generated, and our patient leaders ranked them accordingly. And then the final score was obtained by summing up the scores received from each of the participants in each of the items. So I'll come to that a bit later, and you'll have kind of a session for question and answer at the end of this this webinar. So if you have any questions, just please note them down. Now, as I briefly mentioned earlier, the questions, there were 2 questions, and the process was repeated for the questions. So the first question was, what are the impacts and challenges associated with the GA? And the second question was, what are the treatment expectations from patients living with GA regarding the mode of delivery, frequency of treatment, visual outcome and function, and side effects of current and potential therapies for GA? And there were the facilitators allowed for further questions in relation to if the question were not clear from the participants, and they were allowed to ask further questions. Now, looking at the impact of GA, impact associated with GA, there are 37 unique items, which are generated by the group, as well as from the literature review and survey with the patients. So they all fell into 7 categories: daily living activities, 9 items, mental health, 2 items, emotional and social health, 9 items, caregiver, 4 items, employment-based impact, 3 items, independence, 1 item, and a visual function, 9 items. So if we break it down to the items generated from the group and then the literature review, we found that the daily living activities, the common daily living activities, which are, watching TV, recognizing faces, navigating the environment, doing groceries and shopping, traveling to and from appointments, cooking, computers and smartphones, and reading. In terms of emotional and social issues, there are fear, loneliness, frustration, social isolation, sadness, anger, and so on. In terms of informal caregiver family members' burden, there was feeling of guilt, caregiver job reduction, caregivers' anxiety and depression, caregivers' loss of leisure time due to the caregiver responsibilities. And in terms of losing independence, there was relying on others for groceries, shopping, traveling, hiking, and all those sort of activities that are important to patients in everyday life. And there were also the group, as well as the literature, identify impact on individual work, which is job loss due to the condition, reduction in job working hours in the condition, or being unproductive at work. Now, in terms of visual functions that are affected due to GA, there were blurred vision, brightness sensitivity, dizziness, low light sensitivity, and poor light or dark adaptation, poor contrast, and poor depth perception, and progressive visual loss and deterioration of the condition. I suppose the progressive visual loss and the deterioration of the condition can be lumped into a single point. And then there was the implications on mental health, which is anxiety and depression. So these all items were generated by the group, as well as from our literature review, which was which the Retina International team did internally, looking at the literature, what is published so far. Now, as I mentioned before, so we did these different steps in the nominal group method, and then we came with the ranking. So we provided an Excel sheet with all of the items, all of the 30, how many items? 37 items, and asked the participants to rank them, giving what are the most important impact of, what is the most important impact of GA, and give that as a 10. And based on their priority, rank them as 9, 8, and up to 1. 1 is the least important. Based on the 37 items, what do you think are the top 10? So our participants came up with the top 10 ranking, which was, the first one was loss of independence, which is relying on others for groceries, shopping, traveling, hiking, traveling to an appointment, medical checks, banking, handling confidential documents, and things like that. So if you can see the ranking from the participants, so one person ranked 5, another ranked 9, another ranked 10, and the other person ranked 8. So altogether, we summed up the scores ranking, and then we came up with the final ranking, which is 32. Similarly, the second most kind of highest ranked impact was recognizing faces. The third was orientation mobility. Fourth was depression. The fifth was deterioration of the condition, anxiety, reading, cooking, social isolation, and watching TV. So these are all the items were ranked based on their priority from our patient leaders. Now, coming to the treatment expectation, the same process was repeated for the question on treatment expectations, and there were 21 items generated from literature review as well as our group. And they fell into 5 categories. The one was mode of delivery. And second was frequency of treatment, which had 4 items, visual outcomes 3 items, regain of function 7 items, and side effects, there were 3 items. And if you look at break it down to what are the items that are identified from the literature review as well as the group, was mode of delivery, different modes of delivery, oral delivery, eye drops, or intravitreal injections, or subretinal injections. And in terms of frequency of treatment, we had one-time therapy, 3-monthly injections, 6-monthly injection, or yearly injections. In terms of visual outcome, we had the group identified improvement in vision, stability of vision, or delay further loss of vision. In terms of regain of visual function, it was ability to recognize faces, improving balance, able to read, able to drive, able to walk independently, able to watch TV or movies, and able to go shopping. And there could be a lot more, but these were the items that were particularly identified from our literature review as well as the group. And in terms of side effects, there was less discomfort, less risk of neovascular wet AMD or other vascular diseases, and reduction in injection and anxiety. Now, the similar process was followed for this one as well. So where the group ranked based on the importance. For the highest importance was ranked 10, and the lowest importance was the ranked 1. And if you see at the top 10 ranking here, the stability of vision was ranked 10, 10, 10 by 4 participants, and were ranked 7 by 1 participants, which totaled to 47. That was the top most priority for the patient leaders as perceived by the patient leaders, which are meaningful, or which is what are the expectations from the patients. Now, able to recognize faces was another top rank. So if you can see in the earlier slide, the impact of the disease was also the difficult to recognizing faces. And if you relate that to treatment expectations, people want that recognizing faces is one of the top most priorities. So that was ranked as the second. One-time therapy was also ranked 3rd, which means that there could be, patients are really want to reduce the treatment burden of the disease, And the fourth ranked was oral mode of delivery. Of course, there are some kind of practicalities in relation to oral mode of delivery, but I think people prefer it determines that people prefer oral mode of delivery. Patient leaders perceive that improvement in vision is one of their top 10 priorities. Able to walk independently, intravitreal injections. So it means that intravitreal injections are also acceptable by patients with GA as perceived by the patient leaders. Delaying further loss of vision, able to read, and able to drive were also in the top 10 in treatment expectations. So those are the results. Now let's come to the discussion. So when we look at the results, we found that the most significant challenges faced by people with living with GA, as perceived by the patient leaders, was loss of independence, which means relying on others for all of the daily living activities, difficulty recognizing faces, and impairment in daily living activities. Mental health issues such as depression and anxiety were also among the top 10 impacts. Participants prioritize the stability of vision, one-time therapy, and ability to recognize faces as the top expectations from GA treatments. And then the details are found in the earlier tables. Now, what are the implications of this study? What do we want to aim? What do we want to achieve from this study? So the first thing is this study is one of the first studies that has been conducted in the retinal space, which provided a patient-centered perspective of GA. And we believe that this study will provide some valuable guidance for not just for clinicians, but also researchers and policymakers to direct several areas of improvement in GA care and management. So which could be development of assistive technologies and rehabilitation strategies to maintain independence in patients living with GA. Integration of mental health support, because we see that mental health was among the top 10 priorities, impact priorities in patients with GA, which implies that the mental health services should be integrated in GA services, GA care and management. Researchers and scientists can focus on treatments that stabilize vision, but also, again, we need to consider the perception from the regulators on how to detect the stabilization of vision as well. Patients further prioritize their treatment expectation as a delaying further loss of vision, which is certainly kind of stabilizing vision or delaying progression. Potentially restoring function. I know there are a few new developments coming up, so patients are looking forward to potentially restore function in GA. Also incorporate real-world tasks and patient-reported outcome measures as endpoints in clinical trials, because although patient-reported outcome measures and real-world tasks has been increasingly getting recognition, they haven't been adequately utilized in clinical trials, which can demonstrate patient-perceived benefit of these treatments. And in terms of treatment expectations, I think explore one-time therapies, because patients are a bit worried about a lot of treatment burden, and also more convenient administration methods such as oral or eye drops, although intravitreal injections were also acceptable based on the perception from the patient leaders. So in conclusion, the study ranked patient leaders perceived top 10 impact of GA and treatment expectations from GA therapies. We believe that the findings of this study will increase awareness among relevant stakeholders on the overarching or ripple effects of GA and what patients want from treatments. And as mentioned briefly previously as well, the findings from this study can inform not only the management and care of patients living with AMD, GA, but also informs the areas of research that scientists must focus in order to have meaningful benefit to patients. So with that, so that was the conclusion. So what are the next steps of this kind of project? So we've submitted this as a preprint article, which can be found on the Research Square platform. And if somebody wants to get the article, I think we circulated it before to our partners and members, but I think we can do it again. And we want to disseminate this study, the outcomes of this study, far and wide. And how to do so? We need to publish it in a peer-reviewed journal that is acceptable by the scientific community. So at the moment, we have submitted this work in the journal BMJ Open Ophthalmology and is under peer review. So hopefully, we're hopeful that this will be published and be able to utilized by the scientific community. as well as our membership for their advocacy activities. So that is it. I'd like to thank everybody involved in the project, Jeremy and the different Retina International members, as well as the research team within the Retina International. So in terms of future research, we were actively looking for new research in terms of how to determine the gaps and challenges faced by people with geographic atrophy and retinal degenerative diseases as a whole. So our next research project is looking at the mental, societal, and emotional burden among people living with retinal degenerative diseases and factors associated with this burden. So as always, we would like your collaboration in this work. Our members, our partners, we want to work together. So stay tuned for further updates in relation to this work. So thank you so much. I think that's all, and I'm happy to take questions. So Ellen, if you can.
Yeah, so we've lovely feedback from Kathleen, who said to pass on her congratulations for that we've addressed an important evidence gap. And Kathleen is asking, is there also a plan to develop a quality of life scale for GA? Lack of a sensitive quality of life scale for GA is an important evidence challenge, especially for health technology assessments. So if you'd like to take that in the bin. And then,
yeah, thank you very much for the compliments. And yes, I think that's a very good question. I think there is a lack of GA specific patient reported outcome. So recently I attended a conference in Barcelona on the European Retinal Specialist Conference, where they demonstrated that even 15-letter change in the standard eye chart doesn't lead to any change in the quality of life of the person, which means that there are no sensitive measures that demonstrate the patient perceived benefit of this treatment. So I think that's a very valid point, and I think we will look forward to. We were involved in several kind of groups who develop prompts and things like that. So I think that's one of our priorities as well, to look into how we can develop these sensitive measures that can detect the benefits of existing and current potential future treatments. So Avril, if you would like to add something there.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yes, I mean, I don't think I have anything to add to what you've just said, Naveen. I think this is an area that we need to really focus on. It's a priority area for us, and we're happy to take on board any comments or suggestions that any of our stakeholders may have to improve our processes to really generate as much good, solid information as we can.
Next, I can see that Claudette in South Africa has her hand raised.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to the team again for outstanding work and for always making us feel such an important part. I think there's a couple of comments I'd like to make, and maybe whoever can address them at the end. I think one of our biggest problems, of course, is lack of referral from AMD patients, even in the early stages, let alone the ophthalmologist coming back with a new diagnosis with the disease's progress to GA. So I think getting your article into not only a health magazine, but even an ophthalmology, like the World Ophthalmology Congress, perhaps as a paper or a poster. If we don't bring the ophthalmology with us for referral, it's going to make our work that much more difficult, because actually I was very interested to see that the mental health aspects were actually amongst the top priority. And that's really where we can help, because we all know that the clinicians and the other eye care health professionals don't have time to look at the mental health. And that's where these support groups can. And then also a question from one of the members of our management committee is, you had that report that the Apellis study for the GA had a negative judgment from EMA, and perhaps somebody could comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. Very valid points, and certainly we would like to disseminate this work, including our ophthalmology colleagues in conferences and so on. So we will try to work towards poster paper presentation for ARVO, I suppose, if it's not published by then. So if it's already published, I think it's a bit tricky to get into conference presentations. But I think if it's not published by then, we will aim to kind of present this work at ARVO next year. and that there are a few other work that we plan to do, I suppose. And I think in relation to the PALIS study, we had circulated, I suppose, our kind of thoughts in relation to the PALIS decision. So Avril, if you'd like to add some points in relation to that.
Sure. Firstly, thank you, Claudette, for your comments and your constructive comments as well. I think going back to the point in relation to publications, that's something that is really critical, and getting this information in front of decision makers is really where we want to go, and why we feel it is incredibly important to get this out there and expand on and learn more about these results and sort of build on that. And we've been fortunate that in recent years, more of the scientific conferences are accepting our presentations and posters, and we will continue to do that, because that's really what will move things forward, and that's really important. And in that vein, I think it relates a little bit to your question around the decision on the GA therapeutic last week at the European Medicines Agency. I think essentially it was a decision of whether or not the Committee for Human Medicinal Products, which decides on these things at the European Medicines Agency, felt that the drug was efficacious enough, that if it was effective enough. And they felt that it was not. I think it's safe to say, but we would disagree with that. And we would say that there is a challenge here for us as a community and a learning, that the perception of vision loss at decision-making level is not where it should be. There is a lack of understanding of vision loss. There's also a lack of understanding of what is enough for patients, where they feel what is value to them. Slowing down the degeneration of vision loss, as you well know, Claudette, we've discussed this so many times, is extremely valuable to patients. Holding on to vision for as long as you can, preserving vision, of course, curative would be wonderful. We all know that. But we have to live in the real world where we are now. And the reality is for therapeutics is prevention of degeneration, stabilization, or slowing that down. That's huge value. And how do we as a community address that challenge? Well, through data and through better understanding of the lived experience, expressing what that is, and ensuring through, as you say, publications and posters and seminars that we reiterate and reiterate and reiterate robustly and based on scientific output what it actually means and why this is a massively underserved community with a very high unmet need. Unfortunately for us Europeans here today, and those of us in the European Union and EEA, this is a massive problem, because this therapeutic is now is off the market for us, certainly for the medium term, and that impacts our patients. And what that does is it creates an inequality in the community at a global level. We're a global organization. Patients in the United States have access to a therapeutic for geographic atrophy. Patients in Europe don't. I think and I think the company will now look at other regions where this therapeutic may be become available. But what we're doing here is we're looking at for us, and our main focus, as you know, is patients and equitable access, and we're in a situation of inequitability right now, and that is a priority for us to change that reality. And we can only do it if we work together in generation of this type of data. And I suppose it's quite a long-winded. We're exercised about this, as you can probably tell, Claudette, and it's certainly an unfortunate development for our community. So I think there's another question there, Nabin.
So we've Maria in Brazil's had her hand raised, and then we go back to there's a comment from Claudette in the chat then. So Maria, if you want to unmute, please.
My question, good morning and congratulations. It was a very good study. I would like to mention that in Brazil, we have finished a study with 100 patients with age-related degeneration, but on the journey of the disease. And now we are in the process of interviewing more 100% of patients with macular edema, diabetic macular edema, and age-related. And we included the issue of the religion in the questions of quality of life. And I think that first, the World Health Organization includes religion as a part of the mental health. And what we see in Brazil, we have many WhatsApp groups of people with age-related and diabetic retinal disease. And they use very much comments on religion, very, very much. So I think it's a very strong support for mental health, and it can't be ignored. Just is my comments. And very soon, Brazil will have some details about this research.
That's great. Thanks, Maria. I think, yeah, mental health, as demonstrated from our study as well, is one of the top priorities in patients with GA, and we have been advocating for inclusion of mental health support for patients with visual impairment, not just GA, but all visual impaired people, that this would be a mental health pathway for them to be able to, for the mental health support. So I think that's a key issue, and I think it will further add to the literature in relation to the importance of mental health, and we look forward to your paper or poster in coming days. So thank you very much for that comment.
Nabin, I can see Leighton and Rosemary have their hand up, and then we go back to the chat messages maybe.
Thank you to Avril and the team, Habib. Look, I think it's a really good study. Can people hear me there? Look, yeah. We're in Australia here just actually been involved in a process for GA, the social return on investment. In fact, two weeks ago in our Parliament House in Canberra, we released this study. And, you know, mental health, all of those things, and the cost, the outcome of our project was that, you know, it is significant, and that if government does invest in research for GA and puts more resources into that, they'll save money in the long term. That's what government tend to like. They like giving them the alternatives of what they should do and why we think they should be involved. And, you know, this mental health was a really significant thing in the results. You got anything to say? No. So that's all I just want to say. And I think that, you know, we'll certainly be promoting where we can the study, and it was great personally for Rosemary and I to be involved while we were in Dublin in the project. So thanks for putting it all together.
Thanks very much, Leighton. I think that's, and your support is very much appreciated. Yeah, certainly.
We've a related question from Claudette. It's asking, was the possibility of a poster from ORI being produced and presented at national ophthalmology conferences? So I think that's Claudette asking, maybe kind of we could have maybe some kind of summary that we could distribute to the member organizations. So we can definitely look into that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I might just comment there on Maria Antonetta and Leighton. You know, I think it's really important to note that there is so much going on at a global level, and there's a richness there in learning from all of what's happening at a local level, and the studies that are coming there can really help us in defining more global studies, if you know what I mean. So it's really good that this is happening, and that we can really learn from what is becoming a very rich tapestry. And of course, we must emphasize the fact that within national and regional strategies, health strategies, mental health is becoming quite a strong pillar. So it really, the more we do in this space, the more impactful it can be. So it's good to hear. So we would be delighted once you have published your data, if you could send it to us, and we'll ensure that it gets out to our broader community as well. That's really important.
That's great.
And next we've a comment and a question from Walter Atzori, and Walter saying, congratulations on such an invaluable piece of work towards better understanding of holistic impact of GA. Could you shed more light on the proposed follow-on research of mental health aspects? Nabin, would you like to take that?
Yeah, no worries. That's great. Thanks, Walter. Yeah, no, I think, yes, we're working on that. We're in the stage of planning the project, and certainly we will be connecting with our partners and listen to the details about the project. So basically, we're looking at the implications of the disease on, you know, anxiety, depression, and loneliness, and, you know, social isolation, using very much validated tools, as well as engaging with our membership in relation to the suitability of the tools, and the you know, other elements that we'll look into, not just the primary survey, but looking at the big data collected by national agencies. So this is one example is the longitudinal aging data that's collected in Ireland, which includes more than 6,000 participants, and looking into the AMD, association of AMD with mental health, looking at the relationship between visual function and dementia and cognition. And those are the potential areas that we plan to explore. So that we are in the planning stages and we're fleshing out the ideas. But I think once we have the sort of project plan and the details, we will certainly come to our membership as well as the partners in outlining the details and further support and collaboration. So yes, that's what I can, but I will certainly keep you in loop in relation to what are the further developments in this space. Avril, any thoughts?
Yes, I mean, I think absolutely. I mean, Nabin has done quite a considerable amount of work in developing this program as we move forward, and we can certainly share the information. I know with some people on the call, we shared some of our details of this at Retina last week, and we'll continue to do so. But we will be and we have been speaking to a number of members in the development of this particular study. And clearly from today, it shows that there's as we already knew, that there's considerable interest from the patient community. It's a complicated piece of work, and I think it's important to say, Nabin, because we need to look at the context of mental health across all retinal disease. So, you know, we have geographic atrophy, which is a very specific need, age-related eye diseases in the context of AMD, etc. You know, and also then we have the inherited retinal degenerations as well, different age groups, different ages and stages of disease. So we're looking at this, and we will be working with all of you to find a way to ensure that we can reflect the specific needs, the general need and the specific need, which is complex. So this will be a piece of work that will run over 3 years, and will be quite iterative in its output, so that we can utilize the output in our advocacy urgently, because everything we do is obviously urgent, and that's important. What's important, I think, for our community as well to understand is there are certain issues that affect our community, not only the isolation piece and the poverty pieces and addiction pieces as well, you know, that really are important to reflect on and understand more about. And we certainly will be reaching out and working with you all to ensure that we're developing a piece of work that is fit for purpose, robust, and will have the best chance of helping us in all of our individual, national, global advocacy work. So it's really very, very important, and your engagement in this, I think, is really super critical, because we intend to start this program early 2025. Isn't that right, Nabin? I mean, we're already pretty much getting there, and I think we're going to be having some workshops around this in towards the latter half of this year. We're nearly finished the year, towards the end, October, November of the year. I'm not speaking out of turn there now, Nabin, am I? Correct.
Yeah, right. Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just looking around. I don't see any other hands raised, or if anyone has anything else to add to the chat box, or. So final call for questions, and then if not, maybe Nabin or Andrew, if you'd like to wrap up.
Yeah. Wait, Claudette.
Oh, and one from Claudette, sorry.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much again, for giving us this platform to air our views and exchange invaluable information. And we know that it's only through the effective exchange of information that we all function as well as we do. Retina South Africa has recognized the needs of really getting people to emotional needs front and important. And we've actually engaged a new staff member who's an events coordinator. And she herself is a para triathlete. She's a juvenile macular person. She's got Stargardt's. And she represented South Africa at the Commonwealth Games. So she's very well versed in vision loss and sport. And we've already had two wonderful events. We had the Diskim Ride for Sight, which we've always focused mostly on getting able-bodied and able-sighted people to come and ride and raise money. But this year she took it upon herself to actually recruit people from our member group to actually come and ride in a para tandem. And I mean, we had over 50 people who had never cycled before actually cycling. We had our golf taster a month ago, where we had blind and VIP people coming to play golf with surprising alacrity. And on Sunday week, we've actually got our bowls for sight. So we really are trying in every way to get people out. We are, of course, because it's sport, it's the younger people, but we are trying to also look at other avenues, for example, chess or cards or anything that actually gets our older people out of their homes and gets to mingle and to actually get that mental health aspect addressed. And we've seen such remarkable changes in people that anybody who's not engaging on some kind of a project like that, to say that it actually generates its own funds. It's not that you have to raise money, take from research money, because you find the enthusiasm for the people who participate, this ably sighted, to participate in their sport and to encourage and help the mental aspect of people with visual impairment is amazing. So if anybody wants any more knowledge, I'll put you in touch with Lindsay. And she's just Lindsay without a D at Retina South Africa, retinasa.org.za, and I'll put it in the chat. And she'll be happy to share with you some of her SOPs and the amazing difference it's making in our member engagement on all levels. So I really would recommend it. Thanks.
Thanks, Claudette. It's good to hear. And of course, a huge important part of mental health is that whole engagement and in physical activity as well. So
we just have one final question from Walter, and he's asking if we'll be sending the slides after the webinar. And yes, Walter will distribute the slides to members and partners.
Yeah.
No, I don't see any other hands raised. Will we wrap up there in the bin?
Yeah, okay, if there's one comment. Thank you. Okay, no, that's great. So thank you very much, everybody. I think it was great. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here. And we were delighted that we were able to conduct this study with your support and be able to generate some meaningful outcomes that could be utilized by all of our stakeholders. And we look forward to working with you in the future in relation to generating more outcomes that are impactful to the whole retina community, including our stakeholders, clinicians, scientists, patient community, and all. So with that, I'd like to conclude today's session, unless Avril has any final thoughts.
No, thank you. Thank you, Nabeen, Ellen, and Andrew, to the team, and to Sinead and Kelly, who helped with the facilitation of that meeting back in June. Those of you who attended, and of course our patient representatives who contributed so well to this. It's really very important to start this whole piece of work, and to get the information out there. And we want to thank everybody who joined us today. And again, just to encourage you, if you have thoughts, we really need to hear from the community, so that we can define a very good strategy for moving forward to not only promote awareness around this complex condition of GA, which has its very specific challenges, but also how we convey what it's like to live with these conditions why there is such a significant unmet need and what we really need to do about it. So all thoughts and contributions are welcome, but we will be in touch with all of you in the short term as we move forward. So again, thank you very much to our great team that we have, small but fierce, at Retina International. And thank you again for your support and your time today. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.